What if I told you that the Great Pyramid wasn't just a tomb, but a massive energy generator? What if the ancient Egyptians possessed technology so advanced that we're only beginning to understand how it worked? In the next 30 minutes, I will reveal why the Egyptians weren't just building monuments. They were engineering energy systems that could harness the Earth's natural electromagnetic field, manipulate consciousness, and create what can only be described as ancient power plants. This isn't speculation. This is based on archaeological evidence, electromagnetic measurements, and engineering analysis that will completely change how you see ancient Egypt forever. The energy civilization. When most people think of ancient Egypt, they picture sand, pyramids, and pharaohs. But what if I told you that Egypt was the world's first energy civilization? While other cultures were still figuring out basic agriculture, the Egyptians had developed a sophisticated understanding of electromagnetic fields, acoustic resonance, and what we now call quantum mechanics. The evidence is overwhelming once you know what to look for. The placement of every significant Egyptian monument follows precise electromagnetic grid lines. The materials they chose, granite, limestone, quartz crystal, are all piezoelectric, meaning they generate electrical current when subjected to pressure. The internal chambers of the pyramids are positioned at exact frequencies that create standing wave patterns. This wasn't a coincidence. This was engineering on a scale that made our modern power grids look primitive. The electromagnetic grid. Let's start with something that will blow your mind. The entire layout of ancient Egypt was designed as a massive electromagnetic circuit. The Nile River acts as a natural conductor, carrying electrical current from the Mediterranean Sea to the heart of Africa. But the Egyptians didn't just use this natural current, they amplified it. Every central temple, pyramid, and sacred site in Egypt is positioned at specific points along the Earth's electromagnetic grid lines. These aren't random locations chosen for their beauty or strategic value. They're precisely calculated positions that create a network of energy nodes spanning the country. The Great Pyramid sits at the exact center of the Earth's landmass, not approximately, but mathematically exact. It's positioned at 29,9792458 degrees north latitude, the speed of light in meters per second. This can't be a coincidence. The Egyptians were encoding fundamental constants of physics into their architecture. But here's where it gets exciting. When you map all the major Egyptian sites and connect them, they form perfect geometric patterns. Pentagrams, hexagrams, and complex sacred geometry that create what engineers call a resonance network. Each site amplifies and transmits energy to the next, creating a country-wide power distribution system. The Pyramid Power Plant. Now let's talk about the Great Pyramid itself, because what I'm about to tell you will revolutionize everything you thought you knew about ancient engineering. The Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb, it was a power plant. And not just any power plant, but one that could generate electrical current, focus electromagnetic energy, and even manipulate gravitational fields. Here's the evidence. The pyramid is built primarily from limestone containing calcite crystals. When limestone is subjected to pressure, like the massive weight of 2.3 million stone blocks, it generates a piezoelectric current. The entire structure is a giant crystal oscillator. But the Egyptians didn't stop there. The king's chamber is lined with red granite from Aswan, which contains high concentrations of quartz crystal. Quartz is one of the most powerful piezoelectric materials known to science. When the limestone structure creates pressure waves, the granite chamber amplifies them exponentially. The internal chambers are positioned at precise acoustic frequencies. When sound waves of specific frequencies enter the pyramid, they create standing wave patterns that resonate throughout the structure. This isn't just acoustic engineering. It's electromagnetic engineering. Sound waves at these frequencies generate electromagnetic fields that can be measured with modern equipment. water, the missing component. But here's the piece that most researchers miss: water. The ancient Egyptians were masters of hydraulic engineering, and water played a crucial role in their energy systems. Underground chambers beneath the Giza complex are connected to the Nile through a sophisticated network of tunnels and channels. Water flowing through limestone creates an electrical current through electrokinetic flow. Water moving through the microscopic pores in limestone strips electrons from the stone, creating a natural battery. The Egyptians engineered their monuments to maximize this effect. The Orion at Abydos provides perfect evidence of this technology. This massive underground structure is built from enormous granite blocks and is deliberately positioned below the water table. Water flows continuously through the structure, creating a constant electrical current that can be measured today. The design resembles a modern microchip when viewed from above. Parallel channels, precise geometric patterns, and what appear to be circuit pathways carved into solid granite. This isn't primitive construction. This is advanced electrical engineering using natural materials. The consciousness connection. But the Egyptians understood something that our modern science is only beginning to discover. Consciousness is electromagnetic. The human brain operates on electrical impulses, and the heart generates the strongest electromagnetic field in the human body. The Egyptians built their energy systems to create power and interact with human consciousness. The frequencies generated by the pyramid complex match the resonant frequencies of the human brain. When you're inside the king's chamber, your brainwaves automatically synchronize with the electromagnetic field of the structure. This creates altered states of consciousness that the Egyptians used for spiritual initiation and traveling in the duat, journeying through other dimensions of reality. This explains why so many people report profound spiritual experiences inside Egyptian monuments. It's not just the atmosphere or the history. It's the electromagnetic environment altering their consciousness. The Egyptians engineered these structures to be consciousness amplification devices. The technology of the gods. The Egyptian texts are filled with references to what they called the technology of the gods. They describe devices that could generate light without fire, create force fields for protection, and even manipulate gravity. For centuries, scholars dismissed these as mythology. But these descriptions make perfect sense when you understand that the Egyptians were electromagnetic engineers. The Ankh, the most recognizable Egyptian symbol, isn't just a religious icon. It's a technical diagram. The loop represents a coil of wire. The cross represents the current flow. And the entire symbol describes how to create an electromagnetic field. Egyptian artwork is filled with technical diagrams disguised as religious symbolism. The Djed pillar, another common Egyptian symbol, represents a resonance chamber. The multiple horizontal lines show harmonic frequencies, and the vertical column shows how these frequencies create a standing wave pattern. These weren't just spiritual symbols. They were engineering blueprints. Acoustic levitation and anti-gravity. One of the most controversial aspects of Egyptian technology is how they moved massive stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons. The conventional explanation involves ramps, ropes, and thousands of workers. But the mathematics doesn't work. The ramps would have to be miles long, and the amount of human labor required would exceed the entire population of ancient Egypt. But what if they used acoustic levitation? Sound waves of specific frequencies can create anti-gravitational effects. This isn't science fiction. It's demonstrated physics. NASA uses acoustic levitation in its laboratories today. The Egyptians understood that specific frequencies could neutralize gravitational force. The internal chambers of the pyramids are tuned to frequencies that create acoustic levitation effects. When the correct sound frequencies activate these chambers, they generate standing wave patterns that lift objects off the ground. This explains how the Egyptians could position massive granite blocks with millimeter precision. The hieroglyphic texts describe priests using the voice of the gods to move stone. They weren't using supernatural powers. They were using acoustic technology. When properly trained and amplified by the pyramid's resonance chambers, the human voice could generate the frequencies necessary for acoustic levitation. The electromagnetic healing temples. The Egyptians didn't just use electromagnetic energy for construction and power generation. They used it for healing. Every central Egyptian temple was designed as a healing center that used specific electromagnetic frequencies to treat illness and restore health. The Temple of Dendera contains what appears to be electrical equipment carved into the stone walls. The famous Dendera light reliefs show what looks like electrical bulbs connected to power sources through cables. Conventional archaeology claims these are religious symbols, but electrical engineers who study these reliefs see clear technical diagrams of electrical devices. The temple chambers are tuned to frequencies that promote cellular regeneration. Modern research shows that specific electromagnetic frequencies can accelerate healing, reduce inflammation, and even regenerate damaged tissue. The Egyptians understood this thousands of years ago and built healing temples to generate these therapeutic frequencies. Patients would spend time in specially designed chambers where the electromagnetic environment would reprogram their cellular structure. This wasn't faith healing. It was electromagnetic medicine using principles that modern science is now rediscovering. The Orion connection. The Egyptians were also masters of cosmic energy. They understood that the Earth receives electromagnetic radiation from space, and they designed their monuments to capture and focus this cosmic energy. The three pyramids of Giza are aligned with the three stars of Orion's belt, not for religious reasons, but for electromagnetic reasons. Orion is one of the most electromagnetically active regions of the galaxy. The stars in Orion's belt emit specific frequencies of electromagnetic radiation that the pyramids are designed to receive and amplify. The pyramid complex acts like a massive radio telescope tuned to cosmic frequencies. The Egyptians called Orion the Kingdom of Osiris because they understood that this constellation was the source of the electromagnetic energy that powered their civilization. They weren't worshiping stars, they were harvesting stellar energy. The shaft systems inside the Great Pyramid point directly at specific stars in Orion during certain times of the year. These aren't air shafts or religious alignments. They're energy collection systems designed to capture electromagnetic radiation from space and channel it into the pyramid's internal chambers. The lost technology. So, what happened to this incredible technology? Why did Egyptian civilization decline if they possessed such advanced knowledge? The answer lies in understanding that this wasn't mechanical technology. It was consciousness-based technology that required specific knowledge and training to operate. The electromagnetic systems of ancient Egypt were operated by a priesthood that understood the technology's technical and conscious aspects. The technology became inoperative when this knowledge was lost, either through invasion, natural disaster, or deliberate suppression. You can't run an electromagnetic power plant if you don't understand how consciousness interacts with electromagnetic fields. The monuments still exist, and the energy systems are still functional, but the knowledge of operating them was lost. This explains why later Egyptian dynasties couldn't replicate the achievements of the earlier periods. They inherited the monuments, but not the knowledge. They tried to maintain the technology through ritual and tradition, but the systems gradually shut down without understanding the underlying principles. Modern rediscovery. Today, we're beginning to rediscover Egyptian energy technology through modern science. Researchers are measuring electromagnetic anomalies in the pyramids, detecting acoustic resonance in the chambers, and discovering that these ancient structures are still generating electrical currents. The Global Coherence Initiative has placed electromagnetic sensors worldwide, including at the Giza complex. Their data shows that the pyramids still function as electromagnetic generators, creating measurable effects on the Earth's magnetic field. Tesla studied Egyptian energy technology and incorporated many of their principles into his inventions. His wireless power transmission experiments were based on understanding how the Egyptians used the Earth's electromagnetic field to distribute energy across vast distances. Modern acoustic engineers are rediscovering the levitation frequencies used by the Egyptians. Researchers in Japan and Germany have successfully levitated objects using sound waves, proving that acoustic levitation is possible and practical. The implications for today. Understanding Egyptian energy technology has profound implications for our modern world. We're facing an energy crisis, environmental destruction, and the limitations of fossil fuel technology. However, the Egyptians showed us that using the Earth's natural electromagnetic field is possible to create clean, renewable energy. Their technology was sustainable, non-polluting, and virtually unlimited. They powered an entire civilization for thousands of years without destroying their environment or depleting natural resources. They worked with natural forces rather than against them. If we could rediscover and adapt Egyptian energy principles to modern technology, we could solve our energy problems overnight. We could create power systems that enhance rather than damage the environment and work in harmony with natural electromagnetic fields rather than disrupting them. The consciousness revolution. However, the most important aspect of Egyptian energy technology is what it reveals about consciousness. The Egyptians understood that the brain does not produce consciousness. It's a fundamental force of the universe that can be harnessed and directed through electromagnetic fields. This opens up possibilities that go far beyond energy generation. If consciousness can be amplified and focused through electromagnetic technology, we could enhance human intelligence, accelerate learning, facilitate healing, and even enable forms of communication that transcend physical limitations. The Egyptians used their energy technology to power their civilization and evolve human consciousness. Their monuments were designed to trigger higher states of awareness, to connect human consciousness with cosmic intelligence, and to facilitate what they called becoming a god, achieving expanded states of consciousness that transcend usual human limitations. Your energy awakening. So what does this mean for you? This means that you are not separated from these energy systems. You are an electromagnetic being living in an electromagnetic universe. The same forces the Egyptians harnessed to power their civilization are flowing through your body. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field extending several feet beyond your body. Your brain operates on electrical impulses that can be measured and influenced. Your thoughts create electromagnetic patterns that interact with the fields around you. When you understand this, you realize you don't need ancient monuments to access these energies. You can learn to work with electromagnetic fields directly. You can train your consciousness to interact with the energy system surrounding you. You can become your pyramid, energy generator, and consciousness amplification device. The Egyptians weren't superhuman. They were humans who understood how to work with energy and consciousness in ways that we've forgotten. But that knowledge is still available. The principles still work. The technology is still functional. The future of energy. We stand at a crossroads in human history. We can continue down the path of destructive technology that depletes resources and damages the environment, or rediscover the sustainable energy principles that the Egyptians mastered thousands of years ago. The choice is ours, but the knowledge is there, waiting to be rediscovered. The monuments still stand, generating energy and demonstrating that there's a better way to power human civilization. The ancient Egyptians were masters of energy because they understood that energy and consciousness are two aspects of the same fundamental force. When we rediscover this truth and learn to work with energy as they did, we won't just solve our energy problems, we'll transform human civilization itself. The age of Egyptian energy mastery isn't in the past. It's in our future, waiting for us to remember what we once knew and apply it with the tools and understanding of the modern world. If this exploration of ancient Egyptian energy mastery has opened your mind to new possibilities, if you're feeling that spark of recognition about the true nature of energy and consciousness, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. This channel is dedicated to rediscovering the lost wisdom of ancient civilizations and applying it to transform our modern world. Like this video, if it's expanded your understanding of what's possible when we combine ancient wisdom with modern science. And in the comments below, share your thoughts. Have you ever experienced the energy effects in ancient monuments? What questions do you have about electromagnetic consciousness and energy technology? Next time, we're diving deep into the practical techniques you can use to harness these same energy principles in your daily life. You won't want to miss how to control your energy field. Ancient Egyptian techniques for modern masters. Remember, you are not just a physical being having a spiritual experience. You are an electromagnetic consciousness temporarily focused in a physical form. The same energy that powered the pyramids flows through you right now. The question isn't whether you have access to this power, but whether you'll learn to use it. Until next time, stay energized and conscious, and remember, the masters of energy aren't in the past. They're being born right now, and one might just be you.